Hello and welcome to another episode of Beyond the Checkered with Charlie and Kathleen. Today we are recapping the Bommarito Automotive Group 500, I believe that's 500 kilometers, from Worldwide Technology Raceway in Gateway, just outside St. Louis, Gateway to the west. Today, for those of you that are watching on our YouTube channel, you can tell we are in a slightly different environment. We have done Beyond the Checkered after dark in our living room while our kids were asleep in our room. We have done setup in our studio with our beautiful mosaic tile in the background. And I think the first one we actually did here on the patio as well. Because they're doing a little bit of work on the house. So you may hear a tile saw and a drywall saw and cars driving by. So apologize for that.
Yes.
But also, and once again, this episode is brought to you by the George Thompson Diamond Company, America's most trusted name in diamonds since 1977, celebrating our 48th year in business in the next couple of weeks. And you can visit George Thompson online at georgethompson.com. And Kathleen is sporting one of the new pieces that will be launching very soon online and in stores, a brand new line of tennis jewelry made by a tennis player for tennis players.
Yes, because today's a crazy day. I had a match this morning. I've got to go to the office. I've got a couple of calls. We had to film this, and we're taking our kids to their first Dodger game tonight. So we kind of had to shoehorn this in between everything because we didn't want to go another 4 or 5 days before we got a recap because that race was so good. The race was so good last night.
Unbelievably good. In fact, that's my first note, my dear.
Oh, okay.
It was unbelievably great racing.
It was so good.
Under the lights. I think all short ovals should be under the lights.
I agree.
Now, the Milwaukee Mile, historic Milwaukee Mile, does not have lights.
They don't have lights, so it's not possible.
And yet, I think Iowa, as a doubleheader, should be under the lights. Airplane noise.
Airplanes.
Because why not? I do. I think the race develops well. And one of the reasons why that is, in my perspective, is that it becomes a more dynamic atmospheric condition and track temp race.
Yeah, and you've got, sunset, like vision changes, right? Because you're going from a fully light track to a fully dark track. So the drivers have to adjust to that.
And one of the things we saw was that some drivers were running the clear tear-offs on the aero screen.
Yeah.
And running a tear-off on their visor that was a dark tinted tear-off.
I did not notice that.
Yeah, so
that's something a driver notices that
I do. I always look at what setups people have on their helmets because it's different for everybody.
It's a very personal thing, right?
A very personal choice, 100%. And the idea with that is, while the sun was up, I ran them at Fontana at California Speedway a couple of times as we headed into sunset. But as soon as the sun dropped behind the grandstand or the wall or whatever, pull that tear off, brighten up, and be able to see everything.
Yeah. So you would go from like a dark tear off to like a middle grade tear off and then a clear tear off, right?
No, I would just do a clear visor.
Yeah.
With clear tear off stacked 6 or 7, 8 deep. And then a dark tear off over the top, and then maybe one clear tear off over the top. And this is probably way too in the weeds, but the helmet posts, you have a pull tab on either side.
Yeah.
So you can pull from the right, pull from the left.
Yeah.
And what I used to do was the clear tear off and then the dark tear off. So the first ones that would pull were from the right.
Oh.
And then the next few were all on the left. So that I knew at the beginning of the race to get to a clear visor once the sun had gone down, I just kept pulling on the right until that dark tear-off came off. Didn't have to think about how many I'd pulled or remember. I just pulled on the right till the dark tear-off came off. Then I knew I would go left, right, or whatever I had stacked for the rest of the night.
Huh. That's very smart.
Well, that way I didn't have to think about it. And I saw some drivers with different setups on how they were approaching that, because the aero screen does change that visual a little bit. But those changing track conditions, the sun goes down, the track temp continues to fall. Because it doesn't have I think it's radiant heat of the sun on it, it gets closer and closer to ambient. Ambient conditions start of the race about 80 degrees. And as the sun goes down, the shadows come across the track temp drops. Typically, the grip increases as the track temp drops.
Yes, it gets less greasy.
Less greasy, more rubber down, more grip. And the other thing is, and the drivers pushed for this, there was a rain shower Saturday morning. The way the weekend kind of developed, rain shower Saturday morning meant that everything got pushed later on Saturday.
Yeah.
Practice, qualifying, final practice, including Indy next. And IndyCar scrubbed the Highline session. They said, we're going to just scrap it.
We're just not going to do it. We don't time for it. It's not going to make.
The drivers pushed and pushed and pushed to get that rescheduled.
Yeah.
And made sure that happened right before final practice. One of the things that did is A, it rubbered in the Highline so that there was a little more confidence, a little more grip up there. And B, it gave the drivers who participated in the Highline practice, not a mandatory session, the confidence to know what their car was going to do when they moved up a lane.
Yeah.
And we saw some drivers, their cars were just so good on the high side. Connor Daly comes to mind.
Rasmussen.
Christian Rasmussen. He loved being half, 3/4 a lane and a half up.
Yeah.
And the thing went like its hair was on fire when it moved up. And it accomplishes a couple of things within the car itself. When you run that higher lane, yes, you're going a further distance. So sometimes your lap speed isn't quite as good. It's not the ideal line, but it takes way less energy to do that. The radius is quite a bit bigger, especially in 1 and 2.
So does that mean your tires last longer?
Yes. You put less into them, you wear them out less, especially if you have a little imbalance. If it's a little loose or a little understeery and you're catching it, if you just have to turn less and float, it almost feels like floating the car around the top. You take less out of the tires, they last longer and stay under you for more laps.
Great.
Great racing. Qualifying was Will Power's first pole in almost a year, I think.
But it also, I think, broke a record for the amount of poles.
He did that at Laguna a couple of years ago.
Okay.
He is the pole king of IndyCar.
Yeah.
He has more first place qualifyings than anyone in history.
I thought Malukas showed really well.
Oh yeah. Great day in qualifying for Malukas. The Chevys locked out like the top 7.
I think the 5, maybe.
Yeah, the 66 car was 6th. You're right. The first Honda was 6th, and then there was a Honda 7th, 8th, 9th, or 7th, 8th, and 10th. So, yeah, okay. Top 5. Really good showing for Chevy, having not won a race yet this year. And then it all kind of went wrong for the Penskes on race day.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so Power, I guess something broke on his car. I was dealing with children issue when that happened.
He had a right front tire failure in the middle of 3 and 4, and that put him up in the wall.
And then his day was done.
Scott McLaughlin, later in the race, had something break on the left rear. And he said he was really lucky that it broke when it did, because had he been in the corner, it'd have pitched him into the wall. As it was, he was able to get to pit lane and climb out. I have not heard a debrief on what that was that broke yet.
Well, and it happened during a commercial break, so we really didn't know what had happened. They just interviewed him later. So we didn't see it. But he was running up front all day. And then Joseph
and happened during another commercial break that they came right back to.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a Holmatro safety equipment commercial or an AMR medical response commercial. But because my brain couldn't understand why the leading car, the PPG paint scheme of Joseph Newgarden, was upside down on the front straight. I know Joseph been upside down before. Did not understand how that lined up in my brain until I realized it was live.
Oh, is that why you were so because you were really rattled by that crash?
So there were a couple of, yes, partly you couldn't see it develop, right? There usually when you're the leader or the leader car crashes, the cameras are, one of the cameras are following it.
Yeah.
The IMS camera crew are unbelievable.
Yeah.
Including Bama that fell as he was following Devlin back to his pit box. I feel really bad for Bama. He's such a great shooter, such a great cameraman. They all are for IMS Productions. Little Blair Witch Project as he went down.
Yeah.
Hopefully we heard he's okay. Hopefully he's not too sore or embarrassed. And hopefully the camera was okay.
Yeah.
But then there's always typically a camera on an oval following the leader.
Yeah.
So to break back in from a commercial, you haven't seen anything develop, right? You don't know. And having been on the backside of this, TV does a really good job of waiting to make sure everyone's okay before showing any replays.
Yeah.
That is kind of a golden rule in live sports, is you hold on replays until drivers are okay, drivers are out, status, all of that. I think I have 4 points on this crash. Firstly, the break-in from commercial was unsettling. Secondly, on the replay, the fact that Louis Foster had hit the wall in 4 and the yellow didn't come out for a few beats. I don't know if a spotter missed the call. I don't know if the spotter in 4 was ducking because the car was impacting in front of him and missed the call. Race control missed the call. Usually,
and the thing is, this is not mechanically done, right? Mechanically, you don't hit the wall and then it just automatically goes yellow. Right. There is a huge element of humanness to it. So the guy who is running race control, Kyle Novak, right?
Race director, yep.
Race director has to call the yellow.
So my understanding, any race control that I've been on an oval, anyone can call a yellow.
Anyone can call a yellow. So someone has to see it. Someone has to see that Louis Foster's in the wall. Someone has to be looking at the camera that shows that Louis Foster's in the wall or looking at Louis Foster. So there's that. And then there's one guy whose job it is to press the yellow button.
Yeah, it's a toggle switch, but yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Hit the button. You're right. Throw the switch.
Yes. So there's that part too. So anywhere in that, which, watching the replays, it felt like so long, but it really probably was 3 seconds, right? So someone has to see it. Someone has to, they kind of turn, it looked like they got the yellow as soon as Louis kind of came off the wall and was turned around the wrong way. So, you're subconscious at that point, car's the wrong way, that's definitely a yellow. So if someone didn't see him hit that wall, I could see how that was delayed a little bit.
And on a short oval like that, you often get up.
Yeah. I would say it's still not ideal and not forgivable, but I could see how it could happen.
Well, and I think on a short oval like that, when you get up to the wall, sometimes you pancake on the wall or don't even hit it, but you can slide right up to it. And there's a cushion of air a little bit that'll, if you come up slowly enough, will kind of keep you off that concrete, or in this case, the steel is a safer barrier. But what it meant was that as he came onto the front straight, the right rear toe link failed. He spun across the front straight. I believe it was Kiffin Simpson was right in front of Joseph Newgarden. Joseph dives, has a big run, is kind of looking to the outside, but knows he wants the inside into one. Fades to the left, pops essentially for a pass, and there is a car broadside in front of him, and
he has nowhere to go.
And it was a little bit of a Swiss cheese problem in that had the yellow come out sooner, Joseph's off the gas, backing up, has a little more time. I don't know what the spotter communication was. You're often not talking to your spotter on the straights. So there is the likelihood, because usually the front and back straight are reserved for the timing stand to talk to the driver. Mm-hmm. The timing stand with a wired-in base station is a much more powerful radio than the spotter.
But you always had your radio like preferenced to.
It's all the same frequency. So
Okay.
if they both came on, which is why there are protocols on who talks when.
Yeah.
Because if you walk all over each other, it's on
Jibble jabbles.
Yeah. Technical term, jibble jabbles. And so that was the second thing, was the yellow came out later than you would have expected.
Yeah.
Thirdly, it launched Joseph up and had the chaos theory of crash dynamics been just a little different, that thing goes cartwheeling down pit lane.
Yeah, and
there are hundreds of exposed personnel in pit lane.
Yes. It reminded me a lot of the Dixie J. Howard crash
At Indy.
Indy.
Just 40 miles an hour less, probably. Yeah.
Where Dixie got up and hit the safer barrier sideways, like Joseph did, like, driver's side down.
Yep.
And it had so one thing that could have gone wrong was the car launching into pit lane and taking someone out in pit lane, which would have been devastating. The second thing that could have gone wrong is Joseph could have come down on that wall.
Yep.
And he came down on that wall. The back end of the car came down on that wall, not Joseph, not the cockpit did.
Right.
So that was another really, that could have been much worse for Joseph than it was.
And his impact with the crashed car of Louis Foster was not directly broadside into the cockpit or into the legs, the nose of the car.
Mm-hmm.
It was sort of at the tail on that rear wheel that had already collapsed. Probably part of what launched him. And you can't say it enough again. Thank goodness for the efforts of everybody to get the aero screen and the integrated halo into these race cars.
Yeah.
Once again, no question, there was less opportunity for injury because of that aero screen.
Agree.
And if someone, I would love to hear if anyone has any comments to the contrary about how the car looks or how the car drives or anything like that. I think you can't.
I think the benefits outweigh the detriments.
10 to 1.
Yeah.
Hundreds to 1.
Yeah.
I think it's yes.
It's a little crazy that you drove for so long without that.
It feels, well, it's like, how long did drivers drive before Hans devices?
Yeah.
And now they're just second nature. Anyways, everybody was okay. Louis and Joseph both got out of the car. So that was the end of Penske's
day.
Great night between McLaughlin, mechanical failure, Willpower, mechanical failure, Joseph Newgarden, spectacular crash while leading. Just and then a series of unfortunate events.
And Malukas had an incident with the wall.
Yep. He got just a little high, wiggled up.
So that's 4 super fast cars that are out of it.
Yep. And 4 super fast Chevys.
Oh, yeah, they're all Chevys.
Yep.
So that meant that kind of the win was, all of those cars were cars that we would have bet on to win.
Yes.
So next, it's like, I mean, the broadcast said it a million times how bad Andretti is at that track, how they've not had good races, and then an Andretti goes and wins.
And Kyle Kirkwood did an unbelievably intelligent, mature, poised job to win that race. He was, based on strategy things, he was a lap down on lap 239 out of 260.
And typically a lap down, you're like, I'm out of this race. I'm over it.
And part of what was driving that lap down was there were people trying to stretch fuel. People had come in on lap 204, 205, and were trying to go all the way to 260. Most cars couldn't go that far. But they rolled the dice hoping for another yellow. For every 2 laps of yellow, it costs about a lap of green. So they needed, the last car stopped on 256, Calamilot in the 90. He needed about 3 laps, about 7 laps of yellow to make it.
Yeah.
It would have been really tight. Yellows breed yellows, but it didn't. Once they got rolling again,
Yeah.
there was just...
So that meant everyone, like, because Dixie was one of the first ones to come out. He got really lucky with the yellow, and then was cycled to the front. And
so
then,
there were some comments about, how did Scott Dixon end up leading this race by a lap? Because he's Scott Dixon, right?
He's Scott.
But the way it works on a short oval is you want to go as long as possible, because when the lap time...
Last night, the undercut was the way everyone was going.
As long as it stayed green.
Okay. Yeah.
As long as it stayed green. Because, to borrow a phrase from our friend Townsend Bell on the Fox broadcast, the danger zone exists when you short pit on a short oval.
Yeah.
Because the lap time is less than the time lost in pit lane. At Indy, it's a little different. You can come in and come out and stay ahead, because the time lost in pit lane is just a little longer or just a little shorter than a lap time.
Yeah. But
at Gateway,
you pit, you're definitely losing a lap. It doesn't matter.
You go down a lap.
What.
So when the yellow comes out on lap 1, which one was it? One of these yellows. Scott Dixon is the only car on the lead lap. Lap 195. Right?
So the Malukas yellow.
So David Malukas gets up into the wall in turn 4, and it goes yellow. Scott Dixon is the only car on the lead lap.
Yeah.
Everyone else is lined up behind him a lap down.
Yes.
So he comes in and pits. He cycles to the tail end. They get the wave by. He goes up, pits up the pace car. They follow him around. He gets a free pit stop.
Yeah.
The 9 crew didn't even have to set a land speed record to keep him in the lead with a yellow pit stop. Magic. But it wasn't enough to be able to stay up front.
Because his car wasn't good. I thought he had a not great pit stop when he came in for fuel.
So he was struggling with his car a little bit. His last pit stop was lap 237. He didn't have great pace. Still finished 4th.
Yeah.
I mean, again,
that's only Scott Dixon.
That's a Scott Dixon conversation. Yeah, he had a really rough night. His car wasn't great. Didn't great pit stop. Finished 4th. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. I also want to shout out Connor Daly. He ran really, really, really well up front.
He always does there.
Yep. He's really good there.
He was so much fun to watch, too.
Man.
Watching him, the in-cars of, Rossi and a couple others, when, it looks like they're standing still and Connor just flies right by him. He was fun to watch.
Yep. And it worked out.
Yeah.
And I don't actually know where he ended up. He had a little bit of a rough last stint. I feel like he finished 6th, which is a really good result for Johan Chris Hollinger.
Yep.
I think he wanted more, for sure. The fact that Kyle Kirkwood stole a race win from what could have been Chevy's night, as strong as Chevy was, and Honda still undefeated this year in race wins, has got to make Michigan a little longer.
And Pato O'Ward came in second, so he's second in points now.
Still second in points, yep. And Kirkwood closed in. Alex Palou had a quiet night in 8th. I mean, he was up there, he was back. I don't know that the Ganassi cars were particularly strong.
I don't think they were.
It just didn't look particularly
great. But you know what? When you were with Ganassi, you guys weren't particularly strong either, right? I don't ever remember you guys being super strong on a short oval, except Milwaukee
with
Dario.
Yeah. There's no love lost between me and Gateway.
Yeah.
It's not my favorite place in the world as a racetrack to drive.
You don't love Iowa either.
I got okay with Iowa, but I didn't love it. No. It's a unique thing. short oval drivers. Joseph is great there.
Yep.
Connor's great there. David Malukas has
great
proven
there.
to be great there. I think Scotty Mack is a consistent. He's like coming from touring cars in Australia and is turned into a great oval driver is really impressive.
Yeah.
Another really interesting split on results was the Ed Carpenter racing cars.
Yeah. Rasmussen had a hell of a day.
Unbelievable. First podium.
Yeah.
Great result for the 21
so
car.
jazzed when he got out of the car.
He was so excited.
And Rossi was just kind of,
again, not.
I expected him to be good, and he just wasn't.
And I expected him to be much more confident on the high line. But like you said, there were some onboards where he was kind of tied to a post, and people were driving around the outside of him.
Well, and what you said was, well, Rasmussen's getting a heck of a lot more sleep than Alex right now, and I don't think that's it. Maybe they went two different ways with setup and found out the Rasmussen car was just a better setup, or maybe Christian doesn't know any better and felt more comfortable on the high line, but Rossi's felt that before, and maybe it wasn't as comfortable for him. Who knows?
My gut says Alex's setup was better at the start of the day, and Christian's was better at the end of the day.
Because we saw a lot of cars that were set up great in the beginning, and I think Daly is one of these. In the beginning, his car was on fire, and then towards the end of the day, he didn't have that same advantage.
I think we have to change the terminology because Christian Rasmussen was actually on fire during the course of the race during a pit stop, but it went out, and
which is interesting because Rossi was out of the race because of a fire at the 500,
Indy, the last open race.
I think they need to maybe look at
there's something going on there.
There's something weird going on there.
But like you said, and I think Rossi started stronger. Alex started stronger and then maybe faded as the track cooled off and the lanes opened up and the balance shifted. And Christian, oh man, he nearly pulled a Scott Dixon. So because of that fire in pit lane, they didn't get as much fuel in the car as they thought because it all spilled on the side of the car.
Spilled on the side of the car.
Didn't get in the fuel tank. So it meant they had to come in early for the next one.
Yeah.
Because of that, he was going to be able to go longer.
Yeah.
A yellow had just come out. I think it was Joseph's big yellow. And he didn't have enough fuel to just cycle around.
Yeah, he had to come in and get
emergency service. And so emergency service in a closed pit means that
lap 149, he got emergency service in a closed pit.
Yep. So that was the Yep.
Yeah.
So he took the restart from the rear of the field, which would have been 18th with 110 laps to go. And he drove through to third. He'd already driven through the field once.
Yeah.
Did it again. Great night for Christian Rasmussen.
Lots of passing on short oval experience.
Yeah. Absolutely awesome. Great night racing. Great TV. Drama. High drama.
Mm-hmm.
High intrigue. Every short oval should be under the lights.
And again, the Fox broadcast.
Crushed it.
Yep.
I'd love to see a little better data technically on the timing and scoring.
Yeah.
Pylons, I think they're still
I would
imagine
James is fighting for that because he's a stickler for stuff like that.
Yeah. Seeing those different things develop. I was doing great in my IndyCar Fantasy League until Joseph crashed, Malukas crashed. I had a couple other things go way wrong. I was in the top 5 of the day and then was not. But I did win and do really well from Detroit, so I'm still top 5 in season points.
Great.
Coming up on halfway, maybe right around halfway of the season.
And you're headed to Road America?
I am headed to Road America. I have a job working in race control outside of the IndyCar series, so I will be around. I am really looking forward to it. We've got some busy weeks of travel. Our kids are out of school now.
Yep.
They've got camps galore, gymnastics, tennis, swim, travel international, some time at a lake.
So we will either film our Road America podcast with a link, like Charlie and I at different situations, or I am flying out Tuesday to Chicago to meet you in Chicago.
That's right. Yeah.
So we might film it in Chicago.
We could do that. We'll just have to see how it all works out. See how much there is to talk about from the XPEL Grand Prix at Road America this weekend.
So beautiful there.
I love it. I'm looking forward to some bratwursts and some cheese curds. It is so beautiful. If you're coming to Road America, enjoy. We've camped up there and had a ball. It's one of my favorite racetracks, all the way back from when I won the June Sprints in 2002 in a Formula Ford 1600 there.
Do we need to figure out how many years ago that was, or is that going to make you feel old?
I already feel old, so there's no need to do that. We will see you after the Grand Prix from Road America here on Beyond the Checkered with Charlie and Kathleen.